Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Motivational Monday. My name is Kira. I am your host, and I'm extra excited for today's session. We're stepping into a whole new month, which means that we're focusing on women's well-being this time around. So we just closed out our stress and anxiety management month, and about 85% of you saw an increase in benefit with your stress and anxiety management through the work that we all did this past month. So give yourself a round of applause, big clap on the back. And if you were one of those people where you were like, you know what, I feel like I had some transformations, drop 111 in the chat. Let us know. We love to know that what we do actually helps you because it's kind of the whole entire reason why we do what we do. So, we're really excited for today's session. We are getting started with Women's Wellbeing Month, which is an ode to Women's History Month as well. But as I was putting together this programming, I was like, I really want to talk about women's well-being and I also want to talk about men's well-being because we all matter. We're different and there are different ways that we need support and care. So, we are doing women's well-being this month and then tune in for June for men's well-being. But this conversation isn't meant to be only a conversation for women. It's a conversation meant for men and women, which is why we're starting today with actually a power couple that are both guides in our Life Guides community. They are really wonderful. You've probably seen both of them individually, but I've never brought them together for this session with Motivational Monday. So it's our first time collabing in the way that we are collabing. They are known as a power couple out in the world. They've been together for about 10 years. Some of the things that they believe is that their love is genuine and out in public people can see it. They're kind of the couple where people are like, "Are you guys newlyweds?" And they're like, "No, we've been together a decade." So they love each other out loud. They're really amazing. And Philip, I know you wanted to open it up since you're a dude in the conversation in Women's Wellbeing Month. So can you open us up to today's conversation, which is all about how to build a relationship where women thrive?
Yeah, I sure can. Thank everybody for showing up and being here. And I know I'm the man, so I'll get this out the way and then I won't speak much, let my wife take center stage. But what we did want to do is ask you guys in the chat, let's drop your favorite woman or a favorite woman. It doesn't have to be the absolute favorite one, but just a woman you admire, a woman you respect, a woman you love. Drop her in the chat right now.
Michelle Obama. And also drop yourself too. Don't forget yourself, girlies. And then your favorite girl power song, like Alicia Keys was just playing. Mine is Beyonce, Who Run the World. So yes, everybody. Also too, if you can, if you're able, grab a water bottle or fill a cup with water and then grab an empty cup or container as well of like about the same size. I got to exercise later.
That's gonna be good.
Mother and daughter, I love it. Michelle Obama, forever first lady. Mama, that's okay. Like, I love it. I love to see
Oh,
it.
here, I'll put my song in the chat.
I know his song. Yes, Formation.
That's my song.
My man, he put Formation in the chat. All right.
So
Um,
amazing. We love to see it. So with all of that, we have women that we love, right? Women are amazing. Also, men are amazing. We have a whole month where we're going to celebrate them as well. So this is not a conversation of women are the best, men suck, because I think men are really great as well. But it's Women's Wellbeing Month, right? So we want to tap into women's well-being. We want to make sure that this is a conversation that's being had because a lot of the modern day society we live in is based off of men, which means that women are living in a world that was not meant for them. So when we start talking about women's well-being, a lot of it is going to be a little bit counterintuitive, or maybe we realize that we're operating as women counterintuitively, and there might be more sufficient ways to show up that would be beneficial for us and everyone who is around us. So can you guys intro us today into a little bit of today's conversation regarding women's well-being and how to create a relationship where women thrive?
yeah. Kira, you introed us. So yes, we've been together forever, or like Cardi says, forever. But I just want y'all to know, like, whenever I speak about my husband or my support system, and whenever I've shared my story about mental health, this is what it looks like to have someone love you at your worst. He proposed to me when I was too scared to leave the house. I could barely get to his brother's house where he proposed on Thanksgiving. And he flew me to Vegas. I was shaking, crying, screaming on the plane. And we had a secret wedding. We eloped in Vegas before we had our big wedding. And he supported me even during the worst periods. I call it the Great Depression for myself. And he helped me start a business. So he supported me when I had a comfortable job. He supported me leaving that job and starting a business from scratch, not knowing what I was doing and starting scared. So today, I really, really hope that this gives inspiration for the positive relationships in your life already and how to find them if you don't already have them.
So beautiful. That's the thing too. I think that a relationship where you can thrive doesn't inherently mean that you're thriving every single step of the way, but it does mean that you've been given the conditions, regardless of the circumstances, to thrive. And our capabilities change over time. Sometimes we can barely do anything. We'll do an exercise that shows you. Sometimes we've got everything to give, but when someone can love you through thick and thin, that's so important. And that's a part of why I wanted to have Philip and Candice here because um yeah, we need support systems. We need some help. A lot of us are hyper independent women. Drop 222 in the chat if you're a hyper independent woman. I've related to that for most of my life, and I'm really changing that. So that's a part of the importance for today's conversation. So, Candace, as we're opening up the conversation, what do you think women are struggling with right now?
Um, a few things, but I do want to start off by once again acknowledging, and I try to say this whenever you and I talk, Kira, but I know everybody doesn't have like their solid support system. They don't all, not everyone has a partner right now. Not everybody has, say, family and friends or community. So if you've been carrying life alone, I'm not here to judge you or minimize you. I'm here to honor what you've had to do to survive. So the first thing I want to touch on is the current economy. Also making sure I acknowledge people, women who, with the way it is in this economy, you are working harder for less. Come on now, more hours and less breathing room. So, with that kind of pressure, it kind of trains your nervous system into self-dependency. You don't just choose independence, you actually get conditioned into it. So, first it starts as I have to do it alone. Then it becomes I don't need anybody. And if we're being real, sometimes it becomes from that I'd rather do it alone because people rely on themselves instead of others because that feels expensive. But what I want to do is deconstruct not needing somebody because I don't need anyone can be strength, but it can also be, hear me, wisdom dressed up as a wound. So when you think of when you say that, independence is a skill, but hyper independence is kind of like a scar. It's a self-defense mechanism that you use to protect yourself. So not needing support isn't the goal. The goal is to be able to receive it without fear or guilt or distrust. So if y'all grabbed your cups, the cups or the water bottles that I asked y'all about, if you could, and then you grab the empty container. I want that cup that has filled with water in it, pour that into the empty cup, and then drop a 444 in the chat once you've done, if you're able to, if you've poured the water or liquid from one cup to another. I just want to see at least one for, okay, perfect. Thank y'all so much. Okay. Now the cup you poured from, the one that you've poured from, it should be fully poured into the other container. Drink from that cup. And when you've done that, put fives in the chat. Okay, drink from the cup, not the one you poured into, but the one you poured from. Do you see what happened? You are showing yourself a picture of what it looks like to walk too much in independence. If you're always pouring into everybody else, your kids, your job, your family, your business, your friends, eventually there's nothing left to give yourself, right? So you cannot thrive as a woman if you're not the one always never being replenished. So you can't, yes, you cannot drink from an empty cup. And we want to dismantle even the inherited model of independence. A lot of y'all said y'all mamas, and she did the best she could, especially if she was a single woman, especially. That was the model set in front of us. And I want to acknowledge my mama was one of them. But sometimes we inherit that again as a wound dressed up in wisdom. So we make a promise like we don't want to be like our moms in a lot of respects. We don't want to be tired. We don't want to be exhausted. But we end up doing the same thing and it becomes unprocessed survival. And then also there's the media that kind of catastrophizes relationships and you say, I never want that kind of love to find me, but The media is not a research experiment. So, what I want to really briefly touch on is that viral is not normal. So, when you see relationships out in the world, those are not the typical thing. We have to detach ourselves from what's viral on the media and define our own independence while also allowing someone else into our lives.
I think one of the most important things too is the fact that you brought social media into the conversation because I feel like we do live in more of a disconnected society than ever before. Esther Perel says this, and some of you may have heard me say this before. She's like, I've got 1,000 Facebook friends, but I have no one to watch my cat. And these are the support systems that we need to build, right? Like things that actually matter. I mean, I ran a social media business for many, many years. I can tell you that what I showed versus the life that I lived, they were different things. And there's a whole point to that, right? But I tried to be as vulnerable as possible. But even now that I've stepped back, I'm like, dang, I don't know if I fully did people justice. And it's the reason why I don't run a social media business right now, but why we run a podcast style conversation every Monday that's based on truth and vulnerability and helping you see that, like, hey, we can't do this alone. Because that's literally the backbone of life guides as a whole is you don't have to navigate life alone. And there are support systems, there are people out there for you who have lived a real life and who can tell you a real story. So, talking about real stories, Philip, I know that you and Candice have obviously been through a lot in the decade that you've been together. How have you personally helped Candice go from surviving to thriving, and how have you two navigated that together over time?
So, honestly, I think that that's a great question, especially for the person who's in support. Let me first start by saying that support isn't saving. I didn't come into our relationship or even trying to get to know her thinking that I was her savior. I was the person who was going to bring her to another level through my exploits alone. I really wanted to get to know Babe. I'm gonna call her Babe. That's who she is to me. Yeah, I could say Cece, but she's Babe.
Love
So,
spicy.
but I want people to know that the woman that I met at Cheesecake Factory on that Sunday was a fully formed woman. She was working multiple jobs. She was completely independent, completely self-sufficient. She was absolutely beautiful. One day I'll have to tell y'all the story about that. But she was who she was, and I didn't come into our relationship believing that it was my job to build her in a sense. It was more of me coming in and learning exactly who she was, and also learning where I fit in the process of trying to help her attain what she wanted to. My goal was to not just know her physically because you can see the physicality, but know her intimately. And intimately does not always mean physically intimately, but know her, her wants, her dreams, her desires, her non-negotiables, the things that she's afraid to do that maybe my strengths could help her do, the things that she has done that she needs somebody to talk with to kind of let those things off of her soul. My goal was to fully know her like that. And so that's essentially how I approach any kind of support that I do with her. Is not necessarily walking into it thinking because as men we are fixers, and so thinking what can I do to fix her, but walking into the relationship or the situation or whatever we're doing, saying what can I do to support whatever it is that she needs. Sometimes she does need me to fix it. Sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes she just needs me to listen. Sometimes she wants feedback, but not fixing. Those are two separate things. And so just understanding the difference between the two. And so let me just give you guys some stats that kind of show why support is so imperative, right? So just a softball stat, 73% of adults say that the economy is a significant source of stress right now. That sounds low. So we'll just say that. But speaking from my perspective as more as a man, 51% of working women report feeling stressed a lot of the day versus 39% of men. And so the stress level is higher with women. 42% of working women say their job has somewhat or extremely negative impact on their mental health in the last 6 months versus 37% of men. Uh, as far as looks and things like that go, which is why you shouldn't always look for looks, millennial men ranked a good mother 93%, uh, and a compassionate woman 88% as their top spouse qualities. And so just beyond the physical, who is she and what does she exhibit? Good mother and caring and compassionate. And then also among adults caring for an aging parent, 47% of women say that it has had a negative impact on their emotional being versus 30% of men. And 38% of women versus 26% of men says it has actually hurt their physical health. And baby, I know you'll get to that. But just understanding that, especially as men, uh, the everyday occurrences affect us at a lower rate than they do women, and so it is imperative that uh, we learn to support and to honestly support.
Thank you so much for sharing not only your experience with Babe, but also like the actual statistics that people are living every day. Because again, so many of us, it doesn't matter what we're struggling with, so many of us struggle with things alone. Drop 333 in the chat if you're that type of person. That's why these conversations matter. And I also want to say, people were loving when you were speaking and sharing about the way that you love Candice and the way that you support her. So I think it's like the most that we've ever had, like emojis flying on the screen, and it says that people are actually relating to what you're talking about. So thank you for that. And I think it also says that like that's what women deeply desire as well. So the fact that you get to be the man that represents the ideals that women hold for partnership and support is so beautiful, and it's exactly why I wanted to have you here. And you know, we've talked about this in the past a little bit, and we'll continue to talk about it through women's well-being, but women perceive stress at a higher rate than men. So we can have the exact same situation happening, but like those statistics that Philip just said, women are going to have so much more stress if we are in doing and enduring the exact same thing. It is going to be worse for women. So having a man help carry some of that burden is so beautiful. Or if you don't have a man, having people in your life where you can be like, hello, can you help me? So, with all of that, this is a question for both of you. Whoever wants to answer first, you can. But are there certain characteristics that you feel that you brought to the table that allowed you both to be in the position to help Candace?
Yes. Of course I'm going first. It's Women History Month. No, honestly, I would like to start by saying that when you think of bringing something to the table in a relationship, women, hear me. A lot of us, I don't want to speak for everyone, but a lot of times we don't want to have to lead. I've heard that a lot. And so with that being said, however, you have to bring something to the table for that man to lead, right? Or whoever your significant other is. And are there any anime nerds in the house? If there are, please put like an A in the chat because I'm about to use a whole nerdy reference. So My Hero Academia, Yvette. Okay, if you a nerd, I need yes. Okay, so Deku. I had his Danger Sense, and I also was a huge Bakugo fan. Like that was my baby, and so I had like the best of both worlds. I had Danger. He laughing. I had Danger Sense, but I also had Bakugo's like outspokenness, opinionated. So I've always been outspoken, and I would always bring the energy and like the feelings to the table that I needed to convey. And if something felt off, I use my danger sense. I've never been afraid to say it to friends or family. Like I've always been that way. But we talked about attunement and perception earlier when it came to like being in tune with our bodies and things like that at a higher rate than men. I value those that are also in tune with me when it's hard for me to express myself. For instance, um, when I was dealing with anxiety, as y'all all know about, it helped me develop a sense of self, but not the language I needed to convey until the Great Depression hit. Once the Great Depression hit, I had the language, but sometimes I couldn't use my voice. And then that's where my husband stepped in. Same thing with depression. It felt foreign to my identity, but I was able to finally understand the language to say, like, because he knows me at my best, he knew to read me even when I was at my worst. And little side note, we actually met online. So any of y'all have tried online dating, this is actually how we met. So we met on POF. The streets is crazy, so thank God for POF, right? And so we met on POF, and I gave him a fake number. He wasn't getting my real number, so I gave him a fake number, and I would text him. And if I, I'm very bubbly. If I would text one-liners, he would be like, "What's wrong?" So very instantly, he was able to read me and see if something was off. I needed someone that was able to discern me, and that was something that I brought to the table, was being my fullest self, conveying the language that I did know, but then having that feedback from him being able to read me as well.
And I'll just add to that. All of the things that she said are absolutely true. And we kind of are the peanut butter and jelly that makes the sandwich. And you toast the bread and you butter the bread. You better butter and toast the bread. Please, God, don't put it on regular way. But
No
what is
soft
wrong
bread.
with y'all? Like, do something. You know what I mean? Like, come on, spice it up. But in all honesty, like, every way that she existed, I understood was fully her. Do you know what I mean? Like whether it was in a time of anxiety, in a time of depression, and I think the evenness with which I walk through the world allows her to uh express herself in ways that I then can interpret, which is why I was so adamant that I got to know her and understand her that way. That way, I didn't have issues whenever she didn't feel like herself per se. She was still herself. It just was something else going on. So
So beautiful. Thank you both so much for that. And I want to talk a little bit about just support systems as a whole. Obviously, we have a relationship here right in front of us. It doesn't matter if you're a male female relationship, female female, male male, something in between. Support systems are needed, and I think like the baseline of what we've heard is that communication matters. Caring about your partner enough to know when they're good and when they're low, and then not taking it personally, but instead making it your personal mission to support them is huge. So, as we're having this conversation around building support systems, obviously we have this beautiful power couple showcasing what it looks like to be in a partnership. But even outside of a partnership, and just building supportive relationships overall, friends, family, work friends, etc. What are some of those green and red flags to take note of as we're building our own support systems?
Yeah, I think it's important to know these because it's kind of like, ladies, we always have our checklist, right? Like in that checklist, instead of just being, the 666 numbers, the six figures, 6 feet, six something else, I don't know. You also want to have your distinct green and red flags. And sometimes I will give a caveat, don't laugh at me, is that sometimes red flags are easier to spot than green, but that still helps you weed out the ones, in your life, whether platonic or romantic. So green flags, real quick, they respect your no, aka they respect your boundaries. You don't have to over explain. Accountability without ego. So they can say I was wrong without deflecting. And they're not a if I hurt you type of person. They're that I hurt you. Because again, for women, perception is everything. Perception is this is how I felt, and then the other party's like, you know what? I'm not going to be defensive. The intent doesn't matter as much as the perception. Reciprocity. This is one I love. When people are actually reciprocal, they're just as interested in me as I am with them. Even with friendships, like it's not all about them. Support flows both ways. They check in before they have to check in. They protect your name. This is a big one with rooms that you are not in. If you're not in a room and somebody talks about you or says something, they caping for you, they riding for you, right? Just like Deku and Bakugo, okay? And then they increase your clarity and they don't bring confusion. You ever come away like somebody just made you feel so empowered, so alive, so supported. You don't feel judged, drained, misinterpreted, or that you said or did something wrong. Or for a lot of us who ruminate and overthink, we don't come away thinking like, dang, I shouldn't have said or did that. That person makes you feel like everything you did and again brought to the table was worth the conversation, worth the support. To me, those are like the biggest green flags.
yeah, and I'll just add to that somewhat. I agree with every single one of hers. Consistency over intensity. So no matter the situation you're in, they still show up the same way. A big one, they celebrate your growth without competing with it. So recognize when people are actually competing with you and not excited for your accomplishments. Again, this kind of goes into the consistency over intensity, but maybe a little deeper. But emotional steadiness is another one. And then this one is big too. They don't weaponize your vulnerability. So I'm not going to
Hmm.
explain that one further. Just think about that for a second.
And what about those red flags? I mean, you guys' green flags are so good. There's so many things that I could say to that, but I just want to hear you talk. Tell us your red flags.
Girl, how much time you got? Okay, we got 5 minutes. Okay. I'll give you like the top whatever, like seven. One-sidedness. Y'all know what that means. I said support earlier, that's reciprocal. One-sidedness. Also, subtle competitiveness. I had to break up with a 13-year-old relationship because from jump when we first met in high school, it was always a competition. She defined for me what the word frenemy was. I don't want people competing with me. I want them to be my foundation of support, and then we switch spots. I don't ever want someone competing with me. Selfish disbelief in you. When I started becoming a personal trainer, I had someone tell me that I didn't look the part. Okay, I'm curvy. We come in all shapes and sizes, and we can still do what we do. This person was very meaningful to me, but I told my supportive group about what this person said, and they were livid. They were like, you do not have to look like anything. Selfish disbelief in you is questioning if you should be doing what you set out to do. It's saying things to make you question yourself. Remove yourself from people like that. And they only are a crisis only presence, meaning they only show up when they got drama. They only want to vent to you when they're not healed. But when it's time to check in on you, they're gone. Gossip culture when they're always talking about others, and best believe if they are talking about others in front of you, what they doing behind your back, right? And then also scorekeeping. They're always keeping tabs on everything they do for you. You don't want nobody that's trying to one up you with the favors, right? Like favor Olympics. And then lastly, I have to say this, the trusting your blood as support, be careful with family. Blood doesn't mean anything if it's inconsistent. Please. There's like a phenomenon going on with no contact. That is not what I'm encouraging. However, understand to distinguish who's supporting you, even if they're blood versus if they are not. Just because there's a history there, friends or family, does not default them to support. So just keep that in mind too.
Yep. And I'll just say this last one real quick. If you've ever tried to support somebody and you feel drained after contact with them, being in their presence, you just feel like you need to retreat and regroup, then you might want to look at that situation. So,
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. So many great green and red flags there. And I hope that for those of you who have been listening in on this conversation, whether live or you're listening to the recording, that you're having some aha moments, some light bulbs go off, and like, oh, I, this is so important because we did financial well-being at the last quarter of 2025, and we're doing now more of like our own well-being, and this is this conversation specifically about relationships. And I think the two greatest currencies that we have are money and people. Obviously we use our money every day, we talk to people every day, and they play a role in our lives every day. So making sure that you're actually seeing it for the significance that it is. If you're bringing someone into your life, it's an absolute gift. If you're giving them your energy, it's an absolute gift. If they get to have a place in your life, that's an absolute gift. And it shouldn't be taken lightly in how they treat you, but it also shouldn't be taken lightly in the way that you see them, and make sure that they're matching what you bring to the table. So, Candice and Philip, it was so nice to have you here for today's conversation. I'm going to drop both of their profiles in the chat. They are both life guides with life guides. So, if you're looking to get support, if you're like, oh, you know what, I want to have healthier relationships, I would love to talk to Candace about this, or maybe like I want a male's perspective, I want to talk to Philip about like how a man's brain works, all of that. We've got it here for you. We have Motivational Monday next week, of course. We've got Motivational Monday all month, and then we have the deep dive the last week of the month where we'll dive a little bit deeper into women's well-being. Thank you all so much for being here. There's a survey that pops up at the end. We hope to see you soon. Fill out your results, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.